Hello and welcome back to Foreign Correspondents. I'm Tommy Sorang, and joining me here in the studio is our panel of foreign journalists. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you for being here. The fourth industrial revolution is now upon us, and technological advances in the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and blockchain are expected to bring massive productivity gains and reshape the labor market as we know it. So on this week's edition of Foreign Correspondents, we sit down with our panel of foreign journalists to talk more about this new era of technological advances and what we can do to better brace ourselves for the consequent changes in the labor market. The term Fourth Industrial Revolution was first coined during the 2016 World Economic Forum in Davos. Since then, many innovative new technologies have brought about significant changes to the way we lead our daily lives. So, Kabe, when do you most feel that we have now reached the Fourth Industrial Revolution?
So when I heard the news, so Toyota company made an announcement of partnership with SoftBank in order to develop autonomous vehicles and mobility service. Because I think for Industry 4.0 is not just AI, it's not just robotics.
Sure.
It is a world where there is no boundary. For example, between car industries and IT industries.
Okay. And when are you most reminded that we are now living in the 4.0 industry revolution?
Well, mostly during work. For example, recently I did a story on a South Korean IT company which developed a program based on artificial intelligence that takes care of job recruiting. And it's amazing and also scary to some degree too. But I would actually be careful whether we are already at a fourth industrial revolution. Interestingly enough, like all the previous industrial revolutions, they were only labeled as such and recognized as such after they happened.
That's right.
And now we're proclaiming something that maybe hasn't even started yet. Probably we're at the beginning, but fourth industrial revolution, it's a catchphrase, and the definition itself is quite generic.
Right.
Klaus Schwab, who heads the World Economic Forum, he says it's a convergence of digital, biological, and physical systems, and that can mean many things. Probably we're at the beginning of a really, really strong and massive transition into something new. Probably that's the fourth industrial revolution, but I'm not so sure yet at what stage we actually are.
Okay. Now, for the average layperson, the fourth industrial revolution is characterized by advancement in robotics, AI, and IoT. Out of all these new technologies, which one do you think will have the biggest impact in terms of our day-to-day lives and its usefulness, applications?
Well, actually, as Fabian pointed out, we really don't know if we're there yet. I think we are at some point. Let's say, for example, I want to buy kitchenware, and I just download this blueprint to my 3D printer at home, and basically I'm just paying for the intellectual property of that product. But I'll literally, be able to print something that I need in my kitchen within, let's say, 5 minutes. That kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, those are like things that make our lives more convenient. But to be honest, I don't need a car that's automotive driving. I like driving myself, for example, or if my fridge automatically orders new tomatoes because the fridge recognizes there are no tomatoes left, then I also feel nostalgic, because if I would go to the store, then I would maybe have a chat with the person at the cashier, or just physically exercise by walking. So those changes, I'm very conservative when it comes to that. But for example, big data in the medical system would have like huge impacts. I think the healthcare systems could be much cost efficient. It could help prevent the spread of disease. It could also help us making big improvements when it comes to researching cures for diseases. In those field, for example, I'm really excited what there is to come.
Now, let's talk about job losses, because the fourth industrial revolution isn't all about promises of future prosperity. Many critics worry that disruptive technological changes could result in the loss of human jobs. And according to a local survey of 1,000 people back in 2017, 9 out of 10 respondents said they were expecting the total number of jobs to fall as a result of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This sentiment was echoed at Davos during the 2016 World Economic Forum, with experts forecasting 7 million jobs to disappear between the years 2015 and 2020, to be only partially offset by the 2 million new ones being created over the same period. Fabian, are you also concerned that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will lead to job losses in the future?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, but I mean, it's already safe to assume that there will be a massive loss of jobs. We can see that in the beginning stage when you visit a supermarket in Germany, for example, the person at the cashier, it's already, it's not done by a human anymore, but mostly by machines.
Self-checkouts.
Self-checkouts, right. And of course, that's only the beginning. The question, however, is how many new jobs are created that could compensate for that loss of jobs? Because after every industrial revolution, there was a massive transition and loss of jobs. So yeah, probably 1/3, maybe even 1/2 of every work jobs that we know now will become obsolete, will be really not needed anymore.
But actually, I think I'm actually very concerned with the job prospects regarding the Fourth Industrial Revolution, because actually what normally happened after every industrial revolution was, as you said, a lot of employment was destroyed. But the difference that we're foreseeing here is that actually the future job prospects are much better for people that are highly educated. Whereas back in the day, you know, the steam engine, you know, you could actually teach someone how to operate this machine within, let's say, 1 or 2 days.
Right.
But here the shift, we're talking about, you know, I don't know nothing about quantum computing or, you know. So the people, there's a high risk of people really being left behind if we really don't address this issue. And something that is actually alarming is that actually some of Silicon Valley moguls are actually buying property in some places in the States or New Zealand, apparently because they're really worried about the social unrest that actually could come. And I think it's got to be institutional in this case.
The social unrest that could follow. Let's talk about specific jobs. Multiple studies indicate that occupations such as telemarketers and watch repairers may disappear completely within the next decade or two as a result of the technological advancements in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So, Kabe, in your view, which jobs in which sectors are most vulnerable to being replaced?
Yeah, actually, according to the Nomura Research Institute, so 49% of jobs will be replaced in next 15 years.
Okay.
So I think simple jobs will obsolete. For example, paralegals and the accountant. So also, there is a story that umpire of baseball will be obsolete. Yeah.
And perhaps there is the question of objectivity and perhaps whether the machines could do a better job.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think there's, additionally to the simple jobs that are becoming obsolete, I think also academic jobs are also in danger. Let's say a translator, an interpreter, I think in 5 to 10 years, I'm just guessing, they won't be needed anymore because software will be already like as clever enough for live interpretation, for example. People working at an archive, I don't think that will be necessary anymore. I think you could also find many parts of like high-skilled jobs that also becoming obsolete.
For example?
I said the interpretation, but you know, accounting could be one of them. Of course, a core element of artificial intelligence is that the machine themselves
are learning.
So they are progressing by themselves. That could, yeah, that could have like an exponential improvement or evolution that we might not be aware of yet, I think.
Now let's move to a job that is near and dear to our hearts, journalism. There's also talk that journalism will also be transformed as a result of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and robot journalists are now writing automated news based on live data sets and information compiled from previous articles. China's state-run Xinhua news agency also made headlines last November when it debuted the world's first AI news anchor. Are you concerned that human journalists could also be replaced?
Yeah, I think human journalists can be complementary with the AI, because AI now started writing the article about financial statement.
Right.
So, for example, operating profit and the sales result. So we can add some comment from expert, and we can put our own views in this article.
So it buys time,
Yeah.
actually.
Yes.
When it does it, it buys time. You don't really have to focus on looking through all the financial statement, right?
Right.
You can actually start thinking about what all these figures mean much faster than you could before. Right?
It's a best case scenario.
That's the best case
And it was
scenario.
and it was tested in U.S. elections, wasn't it? Heliograph, as in that it was already telling you where something like where voting trends were changing. It bought time for journalists to start preparing. Like, oh, look, this outcome was so much different than what we expected. So I think it could be very useful tools.
And complementary, as
Right.
you mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, according to a 2017 survey on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, many respondents called on the government to address the mass unemployment crisis in part by providing social welfare and retraining programs. So in your respective countries, does the government provide any re-education or retraining programs for those whose jobs are at risk of being replaced by automation?
So in Germany, I don't see that happening too much because the politics is really caught up into a day-to-day business. For example, like a hamster who's running in a wheel but doesn't see the broad picture. We talk a lot about migration and all that, but the big issue, as you said, is the change that will happen as part of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But Germany has one big advantage. It has a dual vocational training system. So there are many jobs that, for example, in Korea you would go to university for, that actually are happening for half of the time within the companies, within the industries, so to speak. So if the demands for the needs for the industry are changing, they can really flexibly also change the qualification and education because it's very practical and pragmatic oriented. So in that sense, I think this will be actually an advantage for German workers and employees to basically change their training.
Right, so more apprenticeship-based
Yes.
education. What about in Spain?
Well, Spain hasn't tackled this issue, as actually has none country in the world apparently tackled it or studied it well enough. Some economies are better prepared. Spain, I can say, is within the 25 economies that are considered to be at least a little prepared for the impact of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I think the problem here is that we really don't know dangers of another economic crisis hitting. And as some Silicon Valley person actually said, right now this apparently is a race between politics and technology. And technology is clearly winning this race right now.
So in Japan, only 2.9% of companies are adopting AI.
Okay.
So according to the Yano Research Institute, so it means there is no impact in Japanese society. So there is a strong expectation toward AI and robotics because of labor shortage in Japan.
Right. What about preparations or allocations for retraining?
I think education is a very important thing because in early 20th centuries, so when factories are automated, factory workers lost their jobs.
Yeah.
But another jobs were created. It means administrative jobs and white-collar jobs. But factory workers are not trained to do administrative jobs and white-collar jobs. So education is the means to give them to be suitable for the era of Industry 4.0.
Sure.
Actually, some people are pointing out with the Fourth Industrial Revolution, one of the things that could actually improve is the access to education, on the other hand. So maybe people that will lose their jobs could benefit from retraining in a way that we haven't seen before, right?
Right.
But then again, it's all speculation right now.
Yeah. One of the potential benefits of the 4.0 Industrial Revolution is equal access to especially tertiary education. So hopefully that'll provide some of the retraining for people who have lost their jobs. Now, Fourth Industrial Revolution, it could also result in more flexible work rearrangements, according to some forecasts, with more and more people working from home or as freelancers and independent contractors. Do you think the Fourth Industrial Revolution might exacerbate the existing problems with flexible work arrangements and this gig economy?
Yeah, at least for this transition period, yes. Yeah, because more and more jobs will, you won't have like proper contracts, not lifelong companies that employ you, but you will basically have to switch jobs a lot. You will probably have 3 jobs at the same time. I think this kind of phenomenon will increase and will become more important. And of course, there are like very many problems attached to it in terms of income, whether it's precarious or it's properly paid. But also, I mean, it kind of fits to our flexible lifestyle. So I don't see it that. I don't want to paint it that black. I think there are also some advantages to it also, because you can basically, you don't have to sit in an office from 9 to 5, but you can also choose which time of the day you are working and which not. You don't have to commute to the office. But overall, probably the negative effects will be stronger, I think.
So, Kobe, back in 2015, Japan opened its first hotel with fully automated robots instead of humans. However, back in January, the hotel decided to eliminate half of its robot staff members and replace them with human workers. Why did this happen?
So, robot hotel is called in Japan as Henda Hotel. It means a strange hotel. Strange hotel. So, I think there is a problem of communicating with customers. So Japanese people are proud of their unique hospitality, so-called omotenashi. So hotel staff, put their hands on the belly and bow like a shrimp. But robot can demonstrate
but you
omotenashi.
can program them to. It's not the same.
Yeah, not hurtful.
Let's talk about new jobs resulting from the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Some experts are optimistic that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will actually help create more jobs than they'll replace. South Korean President Moon Jae-in himself expressed confidence that the Fourth Industrial Revolution could aid his job creation drive and help create new employment.
과학기술을 창업과 혁신 성장으로 연결하여 4차 산업혁명 시대를 이끌고 새로운 일자리도 만들어 가겠습니다.
Do you agree with the notion that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will create more jobs as opposed to losses?
It's definitely going to create new jobs. That I agree. The problem here is people that risk being left behind. Blue-collar workers that actually have no idea of robotics or AI or cloud computing or Internet of Things, etc. Right?
But I would actually even doubt that we need a society where everyone is employed still, maybe not in the near future, but in, let's say, 30 or 40 years. Because when we think through, of course, there will be new jobs, let's say blockchain specialist, or a good friend of mine, he's into 3D printing, like a job that was basically created by the new technological possibilities. And all those technological technological progress will, enhance productivity. Basically, they will take jobs that we used to do as humans. We will have more free time, and everything is automated. So we don't need everyone to basically work in a traditional sense, in an income-driven sense. So basically, we should separate income and work. So work can also, if you are, let's say, a mother and take care of your children, that's work. If you for example, voluntarily take care of older people in your neighborhood, that could also be work.
Sure.
And maybe in the future, work can maybe mean something different than what it is now.
Perhaps have more meaning because you're not doing it solely for the monetary return.
Yeah, I hope actually that will happen.
But then I think that, of course, that model, which is, could be possible, but I think that at the institutional level, governments have to take the spotlight there. If you want something like that, right, to happen. Universal incomes, sure. But it has to be the public sector, not the private sector, I think, taking care of that.
I agree with the direction of Moon administration. So they are paying attention to creating startups.
Right.
But they are paying less attention to raise them into unicorns and big companies. So in order to do this, regulation should be lifted. But unfortunately, there is an incident in Korea, so there's strong opposition from taxi labor union against carpool service by Kakao Mobility. So government should play a role of mediator between startups and the best the vested interest groups.
Right.
I totally agree with Sakabe. Actually, this conflict in Korea, it was mirrored in Spain. Regional governments actually had to face a problem with taxi drivers as well, with platforms such as Uber and Cabify. And I think the importance here sometimes is that people are actually talking not about a job here, but moonlighting. And I think it's important to point this out, of also if we're going to have jobs in the future, that these are high quality jobs, not that we're not, right? Moonlighting in order to survive. I think it's important to point that out, and start maybe thinking that we should start behaving and being treated and considered more as citizens and less as net consumers, basically.
Also, I want to point out the continuation is very important from this administration to next administration. So continuation is very important.
Yeah, between when there's a change in the administration.
Yes.
Yeah. Time now for the last question. What can the South Korean government, as well as the private sector, do to prevent job losses and worsening income disparity in the era of fourth industrial revolution, where many unskilled blue-collar workers are at risk of falling through the cracks?
Well, it's a super complex question. I would just want to highlight one thing. You know, the South Korean people themselves, because of the very turbulent history and also that there are not many natural resources, they've always proven to be very good at adapting and adjusting to new things, and also being creative. And the level of education is really high. And also the people are very, not only the companies, also the people themselves are very interested in new technologies and also future-oriented. The thinking goes more like, compared to Germany, for example, where when we look into the future, it's much more fear-driven. Actually, there's much more skepticism. I think the South Korean people, they are very like future-oriented. Everyone wants to, take on the new technology, new trends, and that's, I think, one of the good preconditions for those changes that we're seeing now.
A good precondition to survive in the era.
To survive and also create the changes that we are seeing.
Okay.
I mean, once again, I pointed out no country is really prepared for this, but World Economic Forum reports actually place Korea in a good position within these 25 economies that seem to be better fitted to face the fourth industrial revolution. Actually, South Korea has a very solid manufacturing structure, which means it's more flexible. More adaptable than other countries. The workforce is also highly adaptable. But then again, it's important to prepare and to use international forums to share know-how on how to adapt to this new horizon. And in the case of South Korea, I mean, 70% of robot sales, industrial use sales, are basically shared within 5 countries, the United States, China, Germany, Japan, and South Korea, which also, points out in which direction especially the manufacturing industry might head. And, given that 44%, I think, of the South Korean economy depends basically on manufacturers, underlines the importance of being prepared for what's coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want to introduce one best-selling book in Japan. So the title is Artificial Intelligence versus Children Who Cannot Read Textbooks. So according to the author, her name is Arirang Noriko. So she said that AI cannot replace God. So AI is just software. So there is no singularity. Yeah. Singularity is a point where AI completely overcome human being, right? So, but Ms. Arai is worried about deteriorating of reading ability because recently children cannot do very well what robot cannot do. So this is the most serious issue. So we need to, cultivate such a reading ability in order to compete with AI.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll have to wrap it up there. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you
for your input. Even in an era of the fourth industrial revolution, we human beings are still very much in control of how the future will be shaped. Will it be a utopian one where machines enable the human race to achieve limitless prosperity? Or will it be a dystopian one where human beings become servants to artificial intelligence? The importance of developing human-centric policies has never been more apparent than at this juncture for the human race to weather through these disruptive technological changes, which could forever change how our societies are run. That's all the time we have for this week. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.